Back here at home, a South Korean-based manufacturer looks to add to the country's vaccine supply. Eubiologics seeks to hold local phase 3 clinical trials of its shot called Eubiologics 19. Let's find out more from Seok Kyu Kim, the general manager of Eubiologics, and Giovanni Alingong, the CEO of its Philippine partner, Glovax Biotech Corporation. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Kim, let me start off with you. Based on your trials in South Korea, how effective is Eubiologics 19 in developing immune responses against COVID, especially against the new variants?
Yeah, well, of course, we have a preliminary data how the Eubiologics 19 protects the variants like UK, South Africa, and Brazil, and Delta. And especially we focused on the Delta variant because it is now the dominant even more than Wuhan. So we found out that there is a similarity between the Wuhan and Delta, and the preliminary data shows that the Eubiologics 19 well protects Delta as much as Wuhan. So that is what we just expected, and also I just believe the Eubiologics 19 will properly protect the Delta for sure.
And when do you plan to make this commercially available?
Well, it is up to the regulatory authority in Philippines, both the Philippines and Korea. So the most important thing is to complete the phase 3 clinical trial. And then right after that, we are going to apply for the licensure and or the EUA approval, Emergency Use Authority approval. So, well, yeah.
And Giovanni, how soon are we likely to see these phase 3 trials in the Philippines for Eubiologics 19?
Yes, good evening, and thank you for having us in your show. The clinical trial could immediately begin once we got the approval from our local FDA. And we're just waiting for Eubiologics to be able to complete all the documents that is needed to be submitted. And hopefully it will be by early January.
So it will still be by January 2022.
Yes.
Mr. Kim, how different is your vaccine from the technology of other brands that we currently already have in the country? You have Pfizer, Moderna, Sinovac, AstraZeneca, Sputnik.
Yeah, well, speaking of the Eubiologics 19 first, and then it is the protein subunit vaccine with the adjuvant. And adjuvant is an immune stimulant. So protein subunit has been used for a long time as it is safe, proven the vaccine platform. In simple language, and then the Eubiologics 19 is similar with the Novavax platform technology. And there are also the several vaccine platforms like Pfizer's and Moderna, and it's the mRNA. And AstraZeneca is adenoviral vector platform. And Sinovac is very traditional vaccines, which is inactivated vaccine. I would not say which one is the best, but there are some pros and cons for sure.
And in your phase 1 and phase 2 trials in Korea, Mr. Kim, have there been any kind of side effects in your clinical trial so far?
Yeah, at the phase 1 clinical trial, and we have evaluated the safety and tolerability. And we found some very just light adverse events like pain and tenderness and injection sites, and it's it's a general adverse event when vaccination, and yeah, so we didn't observe some solicited the serious side effects.
That's very good news, especially for phase 1 and phase 2 trials, and of course by January 2022, hopefully the Philippines will have the phase 3 trials of Eubiologics 19. Giovanni, tell us, pharma companies are also developing anti-COVID pills like Merck and Pfizer. Are there also plans of developing our own?
Yes, that's a very good development in the Western world. And as you know, these are the things that we should also have an infrastructure for being self-reliant, not only on vaccines, but on other pharmaceutical products that needs to be addressed when there are pandemics like this. As you know, we have been advocating for a vaccine plan since 2012, believing that the COVID pandemic or any other pandemic are happening within a decade span. If you remember, in 2003, we have the first SARS pandemic, and then in 2009, the AH1N1 swine flu pandemic, wherein we vaccinated for the first time in the world against the pandemic. So, and then in 2019, there's this COVID pandemic. So, infrastructure like this should be put up, and this also part of our advocacy that we are doing, which is the vaccine equality. Because as you have known, vaccine arrives 2 years or even a few years after the pandemic, and the first world countries, the rich countries, they can procure. Unfortunately, poor countries like the Philippines and other third world countries could not immediately procure them. And so that's why there's a talk about having this vaccine equality in the world, wherein poor countries should be able to have them. And one of the solutions is to have a tech transfer, which is what we are doing right now with Eubiologics. And in the same manner, we should have that kind of tech transfer with these new pills or these new pharmaceutical deliveries that could prevent or cure COVID as well, because
Right.
it's not a one-time off. These things could be happening again, and we need equality, not only for vaccines but also for other pharmaceutical needs. So we should build infrastructure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Build infrastructure and also build its own vaccine facility going forward. And we don't always have to be dependent on the Western countries for vaccines. Mr. Kim, as a final thought, apart from developing Eucorvac 19, are you also developing in parallel with this two-shot vaccine, booster shots?
Well, it's a good question. And then booster shot trial is what we are pursuing, and what we are planning as well. But now we are more focused on the completion of the phase 3 clinical trial and getting licensure and or EUA approval. And other than the booster trial, and then it is also necessary to do additional trial for the adolescents and children.
And briefly, before we let you go, from the phase 1 and phase 2 trials, what is the efficacy of your vaccine? There are some that range from 60 to 94%. Where does your efficacy fall?
Well, efficacy is after the well, it is somewhat different because the field efficacy trial should be larger number of the people, like more than 20,000 or 30,000. So the phase 1 and 2 clinical trial is to evaluate the safety and how it is immunogenic against speaking of the IgG titer and neutralizing antibody titer. But at the phase 1 and 2 clinical trial, and we cannot say how the vaccine is efficacious. So only after the phase 3 clinical trial and the efficacy is finally released.
And definitely we will talk to you again after the phase 3 trials are released and find out the efficacy of the Eucorvac 19 vaccine. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on The Final Word. Seok Kyu Kim and Giovanni Alingong.